Welcome to this time lapse for how to draw a Shih Tzu in pastel pencils with me, Emily Rose. I'm a professional wildlife and pet portrait artist and I specialise in pastel pencils. So as I'm drawing, I will just take you through some of the key points, starting with our materials. This is something I get asked a lot. I have plenty more videos on the materials I use if you want to go into detail, but for this particular drawing, I'm using the sand coloured pastel mat paper from Clairefontaine. It's pretty much the only paper I will use, and I'm also using a variety of pencils, but generally speaking it's the Faber-Castell Pitt pastel pencils that I favour. Again, I've got plenty of videos on this, the different pencils I like to use and why, so if you want to find out more information just head over to those videos. So you can see I'm beginning here with the eye. Now I would nearly always begin with an eye. They really give it life to start with, so that can be quite a nice thing to pull you through the messy stage of your painting. But from a technical point of view, you've got your darkest darks and your lightest lights, and that means that your tonal structure for the piece is already established. You've got the black pupil and then more often than not a white reflection. Something to remember is that that reflection is not always white, so really study your reference photo before you just go in pell-mell with your white pencil. Something I see a lot in beginners drawings is that they overuse white. Wherever they see a light area, this is me heading in with the white now, and just as an aside, I'm using a Caran d'Ache white for that. But whenever students see light areas, they think, oh, I'm just going to go and slap in the white there. And actually what you're doing is you're not nuancing your tonal structure. Your tone is the light and dark. You're not nuancing that enough for your drawing. And instead of adding dimension, you're actually flattening your work. So it's really useful to study your reference photo. Try turning your reference photo black and white before you begin, and what you can also do is make little swatches of pastel on a piece of paper and take a photograph of that and turn that black and white, because you can be surprised how light and dark certain colours are, and you can really trick your eye colour. So that's a really good tip. Just take a photo and turn it black and white. So what I'm doing now, I'm just softening some of the edges, and I will normally do this because it's going to help me join the eye, which is pretty much finished, into the underpainting. Now, what is an underpainting? Lots of artists talk about these. An underpainting, which is what I'm applying here with the pan pastels. An underpainting is this structure that the rest of your work sits on top of. Now, you have local colour, so that is a general colour. You can see I've gone in with some nice yellow browns and then some very blue greys, but I'm not nuancing the colour too much. Instead, I'm looking for general colour and general tone. Again, I come back to tone all the time, but it's super important, and this is going to give you realism. It's going to give you the 3D effect that you're looking for. And what I would suggest is to find your darkest areas and your lightest areas. You can see I'm being fairly liberal with my darks here. I'm fairly confident with them, so I'm going straight in, and that will then help you build up your mid-tone. So midtones are the greys that sit in between the extremes, the black and the white, and they can be a little bit trickier to decipher, especially when we have the added difficulty of looking at something that is in colour. So try and establish your light areas. You can see I've got that halo of light on the back of the head, and then I've also established the dark specifically around the eye, and I'll work on the nose soon as well. So I'm using a mixture of the pan pastels and some of the blocks. I seem to recall the blocks are Unison. I could have that wrong, they could be Sennelier, but they're nice and soft. And I'm using some of the, well, they're called soft with an extra F, little smudges from the pan pastel range, as well as my fingers and extra pastel to help smudge all that together and get nice soft transitions. Generally speaking, you do want the transitions to be quite soft in your underpainting. So you can see now I'm going in for the next area of detail, and this is the nose. This varies a little bit from portrait to portrait, but again, I tend to put the nose in fairly soon if I can, because usually it will be very dark. Here it is black. There is a lot of black. Again, we have the opportunity for highlights, and this just really fits the last piece into the puzzle so that I don't have a huge blank area on my dog's face. And that will really help me decide whether I have that structure correct. We want to make sure that the muzzle is protruding out of the face, which is much easier when we have a profile view as we do here. I do like working in profile. So now again, I'm going back in with a pencil, and you can see here I'm using the pencil on the side, and I do this quite a lot. It gives you nice soft markings with the pencils. They work a little bit more like a block, and I'm just nuancing my underpainting a bit. I'm starting to model the finer tones. So from the darks to the mid-tones, there are some mid-darks, if you like, in there, and I'm just adding bits here and there so that I can make sure the details, which I'm going in with now, sit on top nicely, that they shine out enough, that they're contrasted enough, but that structure is correct underneath, and we have a nice roundness to our subject. Now I'm using, here for example, I'm using a Stabilo Carbothello pencil. I do like the Carbothello pencils. I haven't got that many of them, but the ones I have I do use quite a lot. They're a fairly soft pencil. They've got a really beautiful amount of pigment to them, but I have a full set of the Faber-Castell. I just find the colours a little bit more useful. The Faber-Castell is a harder pencil, but that can go in my favour for some of the work I do when I want really crisp, fine details, and I will often put quite a few layers on, and if the pencil's softer, by the time you get to that second, third layer, sometimes the pastel can just mix together instead, which is a little bit frustrating. So you can see now I'm really going in with some of the lighter tones, and I'm starting to build up the details on top of those warm colours. So I allow parts of my underpainting to poke through. And that is really important. You know, you've spent all this time on an underpainting. It has that structure, the 3D structure that you're looking for. You don't want to cover the whole thing. There's a nice balance between allowing little bits to pop through and then of course allowing your details to shine out, and for the subject, in this case the dog, to look like it does have a full head of fur. And you can see I'm not afraid to go back in with some of the darker pencils. I try and be very refined when I'm doing this, because as soon as I start to take the dark tones into the lighter areas, with pastel at least, it's very difficult to get rid of it. It's easier to take something darker, but much harder to take it lighter. So I would usually err on the side of caution with my shadows and then continue to build them up throughout a drawing, just so that I don't end up in a situation where my highlights are too dull and I lose out on the final level of tone that really rounds out any subject for you. I do use quite a bit of white. I know I said at the beginning amateurs tend to overuse it. I'm using a fair amount of white in this portrait, but I'm mixing it with ivories, warm browns, and then of course I'm allowing the underpainting as well. So I'm not just using white by itself. I'm also varying how many marks I put in one place, so the concentration of it, and really keeping an eye on my reference photo. So this is a portrait for a client, and before we got to this photo there were quite a few others that we looked through, but the quality for me just wasn't quite there, and I do tend to be fairly picky when I'm accepting a pet portrait, because I want to ensure I can give the best possible product to that client. So I'd say if you're setting out and you want to become a pet portrait artist, then you really do need to think about this, think about the quality of reference photo that you're accepting. I generally encourage clients to try and take photos outside on an overcast day, and an overcast day will ensure that we have a nice even amount of lighting over the subject, and that hopefully the animal isn't squinting as well. When possible, if you can't get a nice 3/4 profile view, which is probably the best to draw from, you've got both eyes in it, but you've also got a slight turn on the face so they don't feel too wooden, then I would opt for, as I have done here, the portrait, the side view profile, and in this portrait, at least, there's a really beautiful gaze from the dog as well. So the dog feels like it's alive, like it's interacting with someone, and the gaze out of the painting really extends the life of that painting. So I wouldn't go for a photo where the dog is straight on, you'll have lots of problems getting that snout to come out of the face. The structure will be quite tricky, and often they can look a little bit like they've been stuffed as well. So you want something that has a kind of movement or life. And then of course another element is check with the owner that they are happy with the photo and that it reflects the dog that you're drawing, or the cat, the animal, should have some of their character in it. So what I'm doing now, if we go back to the time lapse, I'm just starting to add a few details. Usually details are added in at the end, but I'm just starting to finesse the edges a little bit. And that's quite a nice thing to do. It softens out the portrait, adds in extra light, and I know that I'm going to now be working further down the portrait. I'm not going to be resting my hand over those areas, so I'm not too worried about finishing them at this stage. And I'm also just adding in the eyelashes that we can only just make out from the second eye around the other side of the face. So here I'm really working on that join between the warmer biscuit coloured fur and the darker grey muzzle. So I'm using a variety of pencils. I'm using tone as well to help pull it together, so I could have, as I do in my hand at the minute, this blue-grey. Tonally will sit on top of the warm biscuit coloured fur quite nicely, so that's light and dark, they'll match, but obviously the colour will be very different, it will be cooler. But because the tones are very similar, it will help knit those two areas together and they won't feel like they're jarring too much. So that's a really good tip. And again, you can check the tone of your pencil by taking a photo and turning it black and white, so I can see whether this brown and this grey are actually the same in tone or close enough. And that will just reduce the difference between those two areas of fur so that we don't end up with a harsh line. You don't want too many hard lines in any drawing. They are really distracting, and then you can end up with something that feels a little bit wooden, but also not particularly realistic either. So I'm starting to work further down, and again I'm looking at my edges here and I'm just softening the edge of this jaw to make sure that as the fur falls over, it doesn't feel like the head is stuck onto the neck, and that they will look like they are part of the same thing, hopefully by the end. I'm in the process as well of recording some proper classes, so I take you through step by step. They will be going on to my membership area. You can also buy the classes individually as well. So if you are thinking, you know, actually I want to become a pet portrait artist, and I've had students do that, quit their day jobs and become pet portrait artists, it's perfectly possible, then there will be a proper selection of lessons on there for you. And at the minute there are lots of pastel pencil lessons already that take you from beginner right the way through to advanced. And I'm not the kind of teacher where I leave stones unturned or quickly jump ahead and miss out one of the key moments. So you can gain a lot from these, and a lot of my students, as I say, they are now able to sell their work or take commissions, or even just, you know, draw for pleasure, but at a much higher standard than they were doing alone. Pastel pencils are great to work with. You can see here the portrait's coming together. Obviously I've sped it up, but the portrait is coming together at a good rate. I think I did this portrait over a day or two, but obviously I wasn't drawing solidly during that time, and you get such a beautiful realistic finish with them because the medium is so soft that it translates to the soft texture of the fur really easily. So I do use some orange in this. Generally speaking, in dogs of this colour with that kind of warm caramelly biscuit coloured fur, I would actually use some pinks. But for this one, I have a lovely Caran d'Ache peachy pencil, and the colour just melted beautifully with the rest of the tones that I'd brought together so far. And I do like to add some extra colours, some slightly unexpected colours in, and again, it helps to round out your subject. And once more, I go into more detail in this in the classes so that you can start to find those so-called secret colours in the subjects that you are looking at. Add extra dimension to your work and extra realism as well, and it does help bring your subjects to life instead of just using tone, which of course is light and dark. So I'm just working a bit more on her beard here. got to make sure that she's got a good beard. And then I'll start to, I think, yeah, work on the neck. Now, when I'm working on areas further down away from the face, and the face is the focal area, it's the main area of interest for our portrait, again, I will be thinking about my edges, and I will start to make them a little bit softer. So this just means I won't add as many details into this area. I'll keep things slightly smudged and a bit more general. So if you squint at your reference photo, then it will just reduce the amount of information you're able to take in, and you can simplify the areas that you're drawing. Again, I'm going in with that nice peachy colour and warming some areas up, but you can see I'm not adding the hairs individually in the way that I was doing on the face. So anywhere that feels slightly softer, it won't grab our attention as immediately. Instead, our attention is going to the eye, and it's going to the eye because we have a high amount of contrast between the dark eyelid and that light fur, and also the lines inside the eye in the eyeball. They're nice and crisp. The detail, is painstakingly put into that area so that we look straight at the eye. So this client wanted the collar in on the portrait. I don't often include collars. I tend to find them a touch distracting, but obviously it's always the customer's choice. And it was a lovely neutral green colour as well, instead of something too loud. So it actually complements the secret colours that I've put into the fur quite nicely and just bolsters them a little bit. So I just kept, again, the collar fairly simple, used 2 greens, very desaturated, and then mixed them with some greys to bring in the very gentle highlights. Again, we don't want to be adding loads of white to these areas. You can see I'm using some of the same greys that I've used in the fur, and this is going to help pull the whole portrait together. So I would encourage you to do that when you're working on a painting. If you get to an area, say 3/4 of the way through your drawing, and you find that suddenly you're pulling out lots of new pencils and colours, stop, pause and think, A, are the colours needed? Or have you missed an opportunity further up in the drawing to put these colours in? You shouldn't really be adding tons of new colours to an area when we're working on fur in this way. You want to make sure that your drawing is all going to sit together nicely and cohesively. So again, here comes that blue-grey. I'm starting to add some of the reflections in on the collar. Here comes the white. The white, when it's sat next to the board, is not going to be as highly contrasted, so it will still have a nice brightness to it, but again, it won't appear to be quite as bright as the white reflection inside the eye. So you'll see here that I don't use very many pencils for this clip on the collar. It's kept fairly simple, just a few greys and black. I would also say if you have a collar and there's lots of writing on it, I would tend to avoid putting the writing on or completely simplify it into little shapes. It can become quite obvious otherwise when the writing is wonky or getting larger, so it's best just to avoid those kind of things. Again, we don't want too many details that are going to distract you from the face either, but that is again something you should check with your client, what they want included, and also advise them as well that the portrait might work better if certain elements are actually omitted from the portrait. Sometimes what makes a good photo won't necessarily make a good drawing. So again, I'm using the pencil a little bit on the side for some of those fluffy edges, and that is giving me a similar effect to what I would get with a pastel block. I tend to leave my portraits fading out with a slightly painterly edge. It's something that I personally enjoy. I tend to find that giving it too much of a neat edge almost feels like a photograph has just been cut out and stuck onto the page. It's really nice to leave a few of the layers of the underpainting visible, and it just kind of gives it a mark, as though to say somebody made this, somebody drew this. This isn't a photograph, and it gives it a little bit of a twist and a bit more life. So that is a personal preference, of course. Whenever you come to sign your painting, obviously get a nice sharp pencil and think through where you're going to sign it and how the painting might be framed. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. As I said, I have plenty more full-length classes over on my website, and you can become a professional pet portrait artist by following those lessons. So lots of information on that down below. And if you can, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. I'd love to know what you thought of the video. And until next time, happy drawing.